in 2005 got to travel with a group of people throughout the countries of Israel and Jordan. And we saw biblical places. We walked where Jesus walked. It was a deep examination of the roots of our faith. And then when we got to Bethlehem, I found the perfect souvenir. It's real holy, right? It's an ornament. I hang it on our tree every year. Can you believe me, a girl from Kentucky, who loves the word y'all? You may have known that about me. I might have a shirt or 2 or 3 with the word on it. I might have had to force my phone autocorrect to stop changing it every time I texted the word. But to walk into the Middle East in Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, in a little gift shop, and there greeted me a combination of Hebrew and Southern. Shalom, y'all. They had me. I felt very welcomed. Had to buy it. The reason I bring this up is we're going to talk about the word shalom today. We are in the tail end of our series called Louder Than Words, where we're examining the Beatitudes. This is the first section of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And we've discovered that just as the saying goes, actions speak louder than words. Jesus lived a life of everything he said in these words that he preached. It wasn't just calling out to us a list of things to do. He lived it out to show us God's better way and the ways that we will be happy by living out those ways. So we're going to begin, as we have been doing, by reading our Beatitude of the day, Matthew 5, verse 9. It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Peace sounds pretty wonderful. Sounds relaxing. Sounds nice. I'll take peace. But how do we make it? Well, first we have to see what God's peace is. And before we do that, notice the reward. We'll be called children of God if we are peacemakers. So that gives me, first of all, an indication that peacemaking must represent something intricate about God. That if we do that, we are instantly known as his kids. Now, in Jesus' day, he and his Jewish friends, they probably would have grown up greeting one another in this Hebrew shalom that we said earlier. Shalom was a way of saying hello. It was a way of saying goodbye. But it meant a little bit more than that. It was offering someone hope and health for their well-being, for their safety. It was giving someone a message that you cared about them, as you said, shalom. Now, it could have felt strange in this time because where Jesus and everyone lived around him, it was ruled by the Romans. The Romans, this era was called the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. But it was brought upon by the Roman Empire, and the way they grew their kingdom was quite violent. They maintained peace, as they called it, by war and by military might. Doesn't sound as peaceful. And can you imagine being an Israelite in that day, and you're just doing your thing, but you look over your shoulder, there's a Roman soldier making peace in the land. Didn't feel quite as peaceful as they might have given that picture. So Jesus preaching here among this culture, this is the culture where they're in, that these people are feeling less than peaceful with people looking over their shoulders, and Jesus is trying to say, blessed are the peacemakers. This is happy for you. But the peace he's trying to bring back into their lives is this shalom. Not one of force and of pushing people away. He's talking about bringing together. Repairing. That is the shalom that Jesus brings. In fact, peacemaking, in Jesus' perspective, was about bringing a shalom of wholeness and reconciliation. That's a key word here. And I read an article by Timothy Keller, and he says that God's reconciliation, shalom, actually has 3 parts. It's about reconciling people to God, to themselves, and to other people. And I realized that Jesus was a peacemaker in these 3 areas. Let's take a look. First, Jesus made peace in our relationship with God. Jesus, he did not have passive peace. This was active. He was doing things that brought about peace. And the biggest thing that he did was that he went to the cross because humans are imperfect and God is holy, and we needed someone to bridge the gap. Let's read in Colossians. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in Jesus, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Peace from blood? That's kind of icky. Maybe you're squeamish. This peace isn't white doves flying by the clouds or lambs frolicking in the fields. This is a cross that relates more to this Halloween season than probably Easter bunnies. It was messy. It was painful. It was horrible. But this brought our spirits eternal peace. And I hope you know that God brought this peace because he wants you near to him. And that was the way to make it so. Jesus, number 2, made peace within ourselves. In light of his sacrifice, saying that we're good with God, that's great. So he wants us to feel that sense of peace in our beings. Let's read in John 16, verse 33, where Jesus said to his disciples, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Jesus knew his disciples then, and even those of us all the way here to today, his followers. He knew this world was going to stink. He knew we were going to struggle and have turmoil. So he wanted us to know that he has overcome. He has been victorious. He is the one who has made a way for us. And when we stick with him, we can have that same victory. We can know his peace, that somehow, some way, we can trust in that promise that at some point it will be okay, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. Take heart, he said. He wants us to have peace in our hearts, our minds, our souls, and our strength in all the ways. Some days we battle our health, we battle our fears, we battle all the questions in our minds. But Jesus says, cling to my peace. The third way Jesus made peace was in our relationships with others. We said how strange it was for the Jewish people to always have the Romans hanging around and ruling them. And actually, the Jewish and the non-Jewish people, called Gentiles, well, they pretty much had a rough relationship even from there. Even as both groups started to believe in Jesus and be a part of the same church, there was still a struggle over these cultural differences. But Jesus, his point was to promote peace within other people. Ephesians chapter 2 says, for he himself is our peace. He made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. And in one body, to reconcile both of them to God through the cross, by which he put to death their hostility. He came and preached peace to you who were far away and peace to those who are near. That peace that reconciles us with God was offered to everyone and anyone at all who believes in this Jesus, who clings to his peace. Well, we're part of the same family now. I know families don't always get along. Okay, a lot of times we don't get along. Yet we have to look that his purpose was to bring peace that will put to death hostility, that will cross borders, that will tear down barriers and bring us together. So for us to be peacemakers, I would say we need to look at those 3 types of shalom, with God, with ourselves, and with others. So let's ask. Number 1, how are you sharing shalom with God? If you've heard us talking about Jesus going to the cross on our behalf, and you have questions and you want to know more, please reach out. I want this conversation that we keep saying that Jesus died to forgive you and for me, to bring us close together to God. I want to talk more about that with you if you have questions. If you already have a relationship with Jesus, that's amazing. And I'm hoping that you will be a peacemaker to others by telling them about that same hope. Share the peace that Jesus has brought to your life, why he matters to you, and hopefully other people who are in this world struggling, finding no hope here, that they would find hope in his peace. Number 2, how are you bringing shalom to yourself? I know it sounds like a weird way to be a peacemaker to ourselves, but let's make it happen. Let's make it a thing, because right now nothing is certain, and I could use some peace. What about you? Many of us feel alone, worried, discouraged. We've talked about this. We want safety. We want help. We want to know when we're going to be together again. And it feels uncertain. So we need something. We need to remind ourselves of Jesus' peace. Try to remember. Remember that Jesus promises to overcome. He says he has already overcome, and that we can come along with him. Let's try to remember that there is a bit of light, even in the darkness. Let's remember that we're not defined by our worst fears, our worst thoughts, or our worst actions. We're defined as children of God, created by him and loved by him. Finally, we have a third way to make peace. How are you creating shalom with others? This is the big one, I feel like, right now. I feel like we need this a lot. I mean, in a lot of ways, but it's November 1st. There's an election coming this week. How are you feeling? Peaceful with other people right now? It feels a little bit hopeless at times, but we do have hope. Those verses we read in Ephesians 2 said that Jesus brought together Jews and Gentiles, and we have to know how very opposed they were at times. So that should give us hope that Jesus can reconcile any people on two sides of an issue. Religiously, socially, relationally, politically. It may seem impossible, but it's not. Peacemakers, they're like the middle child, taking the two sides and bringing them together. Actually, I don't know why we keep giving binary options. I mean, clearly there's a myriad of perspectives, yet we keep forcing people into two different camps. So I'd rather us picture peacemakers like this. There's a giant circle of all the people in the world, all their beliefs and perspectives. The peacemaker is the one who steps from wherever they are in that circle into the middle to get closer, to connect with someone from a different point of view. I love that picture of peacemaking, and I hope that you will see shalom involves listening and trying to empathize with people. It also involves sharing with grace so that others may have a chance to hear and comprehend. It's breaking bread with people and considering our shared humanity. Shalom with other people is recognizing that all of us are the same. We are great sometimes, we make great mistakes sometimes, and we're all invited to the same relationship with God. I've been humbled to observe Jesus-loving people who demonstrate acts of reconciliation, even in difficult times. I've watched people reunite with family members who they hadn't spoken to in years because of their beliefs. But one person took a step toward reconciliation. I watched a testimony of a black man who had been arrested, and when the white police officer came to a relationship with Jesus, confessed that he had arrested this man under false pretenses, they healed the wound, and they work side by side together to make a difference in their community now. Whew, that's reconciliation. A friend of mine just today told me that he saw a mentor of his who he really looked up to, who was just spouting some things on Facebook in a rant. And he was like, what is going on? He reached out to this person one-on-one and said, are you okay? Because that doesn't sound like you. Let's talk. Each of these relationships were reconciled because one person took a step because they wanted to live out Jesus's peace. Okay, I've got one more story for you, and I share it as a metaphor here at the end of our time. I read that researchers in the San Francisco Bay Area noticed that in the pandemic lockdown, when no one was out in the streets in the spring, they had a chance to look around at nature and see how nature reacted to the lack of noise. They noticed that the male white-crowned sparrows, let me make sure I got that right. Normally, this is how these birds react. Urban birds sacrifice song quality for higher amplitudes. Basically, they're yelling to be heard in a noisy environment. When that din suddenly died down, the birds switched to songs that more closely resemble the softer, higher quality calls of their nearby rural counterparts. With less of a racket around them, they could afford to focus on a more complex sound. This makes me think of our world. When we've been in the pandemic and people have been closed in and we've gone online to talk, and more voices have been out there, and that's great because there's new voices to be heard. But some people took the opportunity, like these urban birds, to just yell louder to try to get over the noise of other people. And I saw people compromise the message of Jesus just to be heard. But that's not the way. Being a peacemaker, I feel like that involves stopping and evaluating our message. Are we offering the full, complex truth of Jesus? That likely requires less screaming, even though we might feel like, well, then less people will hear me. But actually, then the message that we offer will be more robust. We can offer deeper growth if we are willing to not get a reaction out of the masses, but to focus in on a select people and offer the beautiful reconciliation song to connect people with God, with themselves, and with others. This week, you're going to be tempted to shout, literally or digitally. You're going to want to put people in their places and rant, and I get that. Just try to breathe a little. Remember the little birds. Remember Jesus' peace. Remember that you can be bold. You can speak truth. You can say what's right in a manner of peace. In a manner that respects other people made in the image of God, that respects the Spirit living inside you, who you represent. Be called the children of God in your words and actions this week. From here on, but especially in these moments, you can make a difference with the peace that you bring. Okay, last thing before we close. I know, one more thing. I was thinking about this, and I promise this just came to mind as I'm working on the sermon. I always thought of shalom, y'all, as like a greeting, like peace, y'all, hey, y'all. But actually, now I see it as a description. Shalom, what we've been saying, is a reconciliation, a bringing of people together. And y'all, well, that's plural. You all the people. So as we're peacemakers, this is a description of us bringing shalom to y'all. No matter what happens this week, no matter what happens the moment that I stop talking and something else will happen in the world, I implore you, as I implore myself, let's go bring shalom, y'all. God, thank you for making peace for us, with you, with others, within ourselves. Help us go and do the same. Amen. Make it a peaceful week.